So,
all right, welcome back, everyone. Day 6 of the 42 days of magical practice.
right.
And we're still on observation, which we're going to take a deeper dive into today, focusing specifically on non-resistance.
Right. And what does that mean?
What does that mean?
Basically, it means don't try to push away thoughts when you're doing your observation. You know, that you're not trying to hold back your mental chatter or anything like that.
And how is this different than, I mean, yesterday we talked about doing it with the focus on non-judgment.
Right. So you're letting it go, but a normal tendency would be to stop those thoughts that you don't want to have.
It's almost a knee-jerk response.
It is a knee-jerk
It's kind
response.
of an automatic response to almost kind of tense up.
And again, we come back to those neural networks being hardwired into your brain. Those are like super highways, so it's like it's very easy to take those as opposed to the back roads to get to work. We follow the same patterns. And so, those thoughts are nothing more than that as well. They're thoughts that are just recurrent, and they've been going on for so long that they sort of have, bonded together with others, and they've made this sort of neural superhighway to go through that thought process and give us that response. Remember, most people were addicted to the feelings that produces.
Do you find that sometimes when people first start this exercise that there's an intensification of negativity?
Sure, because again, it's like we're trying to resist it, right? And resistance is futile. So it's like
well, it's just interesting because it's like when
joke.
you're like walking around in your normal everyday existence or whatever, you may have feelings of tension or anxiety, or you may have judgmental thoughts, or you may have negative thoughts or whatever. But I mean, I remember, I don't want to, talk about me too much or whatever, but I just remember when I first started to do this exercise, it was like, it was almost like, whoa, like that's more negative than like what I would consider even like a baseline of how I feel during the day. It's almost like when you put more attention on it, it's like those,
It's sort of like when, a nice analogy would be, when you're cooking soup, when you stir the pot, everything that's clinging to the bottom comes up to the surface where you can see it. Other than that, it's sort of like, it's settled and all you're seeing is the clear broth. And so those things are waiting underneath, to sort of have something to stir them up. They don't come up by themselves, right?
So almost at like deeper layers of consciousness.
A deeper layer of consciousness, right? And it's like, and we've taken steps to sort of put them in the back and think that we're, they don't affect us, and that, that we're not impacted by them. And when you start any new process, when you start any new training, any new type of thinking even, it will stir that pot and bring those formerly hidden things up to the surface.
Especially when you're trying to, like with, having a want and putting focus on it with the idea that we're going to achieve that or succeed in producing that desired result in our life. It's like, even that, I think that definitely stirs the pot,
Of course.
Because it's like, it's like, oh, you can't hold it. Oh, that's not possible. Oh, you're not good enough. Oh, all those kinds of things that normally may not even be stimulated on a regular basis. But as soon as you put your attention on something higher or grander or better or more of what you're looking for, it's like, it's like whack-a-mole,
Right. And, the whole thing is, and why is that the case? Why is that the case? Because literally, part of you has to die to produce that thing. And you have inherent, we can call it whatever, right? Psychological conditions, some people call it psychic sensor. We have things that are inherent within us to keep us at, a self-preserving mechanism, right? And so literally, as those neurons are being pulled away and new ones are being established, there's a sense of dying to a way of life that we know.
You're stepping into the unknown.
You're stepping into the unknown. And so it's not that that feels bad. It's that it feels unfamiliar. Familiar, we start to equate familiar with good, even if it's a negative thing. We know it, so we're comfortable with it. Stepping into the unknown, unfamiliar is feeling bad. And so that paring away, that pruning of those neurons causes that reaction within our physical bodies, and we feel that. And so when we feel uncomfortable with that, it's a real incentive to switch back to the known. I would rather have this than be so uncomfortable or really be unfamiliar with that area. So even if it's something that we want, in order to get through it, I mean, if we look at it from a step back, even it's apparent. We just don't usually think of it as a biological process and a psychological process. We think of it as a physical process, right? In the literal, it's like, yes, I want to make $1 million, but I really don't want to do all the work that would take to do that, to, read all these textbooks, take all these, seminars, put the hours in and lose sleep and, sacrifice things that I have now in order to, shunt my income into producing more and taking the risk, right, of doing that and maybe, God forbid, failing. And then it feels like I've done all this for nothing. Although, most of the people that we know that are in that category have failed a number of times miserably, like total faceplant in the business world, and picked themselves up and continued to go, because going forward at that point is really the only option for them, because they were so strongly focused on their end result that's the tenacity that drove them through into that place of where they are now. And so we can see it on a physical standpoint, but we don't obviously, most people don't think of it as a biological and a psychological response to being in a known and familiar place, even if it's bad or not something that we want at that time. We don't want to experience that anymore. That's still more comfortable than shifting into something that's unknown, unfamiliar. And even though it looks tempting and enticing, we're still not sure if we really want to go there, and can we endure that, unfamiliar sensations, all of those things that we bring up that feel, bad to us. Let's use the word anyway, because I can't think of something better.
Uncomfortable.
And then uncomfortable, it really feels uncomfortable, but what it really is, it's unfamiliar. And so that brings up that discomfort in us. And so is it strong enough to push us back into the...
brings on all those automatic responses of specific thoughts,
exactly,
or negative thoughts, or
of course, and it's because it's something that's discomfort, right? I mean, discomfort isn't usually associated with something good,
right?
So we have the negative thoughts that back that up, and of course it produces the same response, right. And we have the same neurochemicals going off. So cortisol gets on there, the fight or flight happens, adrenaline, norepinephrine, all of these chemicals that sort of pump into the system. And then, of course, if we do falter and shift back, we get familiar, and that produces dopamine. And that is the king of the drugs in the neurochemical range, right? So it's the pleasure response, right? So it's like, you tried to do this, but then you went back. Oh, that's great. Big dopamine rush. This is familiar. It's like, yeah, it's uncomfortable. I mean, I don't really want to have this, but it's better than the alternative. So you really have to, slowly, be ready for it.
And that's
already giving you the idea that, it's not like I'm encouraging it to come on, but we know that it will.
Right.
So it's not enticing it, it's just knowing, it's being prepared for that, acknowledging it, preparing for it, and being ready. There's going to be things that come up. Anytime you want to change something and go into the unknown, you're going to lose that point of reference of the familiar.
And so I think sometimes it's difficult to say, oh, don't do this, right? Sort of saying, don't push that thought away, don't resist it, don't this, don't that. What would be a very effective response? How do you consciously, when that thing comes up, what do you consciously do?
Again, for me, I acknowledge it and I let it go. I acknowledge it. Yes, it's there, but from my understanding of biology and whatever, it's like, again, and this is readily available for anybody. Again, there are so many resources that we have now that are free if you have an internet connection, or books in the library if you want to read about it. I mean, you don't have an internet connection, or you don't have electricity. I don't care. Give me any example, and I could probably give you a way to get around that with a free resource. So, we're not talking about a lot of stuff that's needed to do this work, right? So, but you have to have, a burning desire to to change and move into something that you want. And so that will give you the impetus and the tenacity, the persistence to go after it and keep going after it, and let those bumps and bruises slide by you, and keep, keep that courageous attitude, and that adventurous nature, to sort of stimulate you into wanting to go there. It's like,
almost kind of like,
it's
bring it on.
Yeah. Because I know
that's the thing, because I feel like whenever you have that kind of like, you go into that place, you go into this meditation, and all this shit comes up, for lack of a better term.
Right.
And then, and I think that a lot of it, for a lot of us, for me, definitely, the automatic response is almost like a shrinking.
Yeah.
A shrinking away, an embarrassment, not just internal, but like, oh my God, well, I guess it is internal, but all those things, embarrassment, shrinking, it's like
it's a protective response.
Yeah.
It's like, in medicine, when somebody has an injured shoulder or whatever, they often get other things that seem unrelated, but pains that come up. They can get headaches, they can get, neck pain on the other side, hip pain on the other side, all of these things, because there's a phenomenon that we call guarding, right? The body makes those muscles tense and gives you pain in other areas as a natural response to protect the shoulder, right? So that you feel bad enough that you won't do something stupid to really hurt the shoulder even worse. So it's guarding. So when we feel that something's hurting us, it's like we tighten up, we tense,
right.
we contract,
we resist.
Yeah, we resist. And so, and in that contraction, it's giving that in an energetic way, it's giving that more energy, more power than it really does have. If we want to say a proper response to that would be to relax, acknowledge its existence. It's not that it's not there. We acknowledge that, that's the first step in knowing that you've stepped into the unknown, is any of these little bumps that come up. It's like, oh, I'm getting closer.
So it's almost like
reframe it.
Yeah, reframe it. Those
it's
negative
like,
thoughts or those things or those feelings that you don't like. It's like that's a phenomenal indicator that you're moving in the direction you want to go. Because
it may not be pleasant,
uncomfortable. It's not like it's great. No, definitely not.
But it can, instead of it being a contraction, it's more of like
boost of confidence.
What am I going to see around the next corner?
Absolutely.
That's my adventurous part. Kicks into gear. It's like, holy crap.
I'm moving. I'm stirring the pot.
That's right. I'm stirring the pot. That's right. So that's the thing, and that can be, the way we frame it can be very encouraging, and
absolutely,
and change it around for us, and of course, that when we make it into that's something exciting,
yes,
then that changes the neurochemistry too, right?
Yes.
So it prunes away what the automatic response would be.
Yes.
Because we have to think about it, right? It's not a natural response. Something happens that isn't comfortable for us. Our natural response is this. But we think about it and we reframe. We know what it is. We know it's because we've done this new thing. So we have to have that conscious understanding of that. And when we have that conscious understanding of that and we act in a different way, it prunes away a little bit of that natural response and
habitual
and sprouts the new response that we want, right? So it's like, those things become, it's like, a good martial artist, right? They use the force of their opponent to overcome the opponent, right? So it's like we see those bumps as something we can utilize. It's an impetus to give us more energy. We're getting closer. Now we're getting excited. We've got a little bit more energy. We can do a little bit more. Instead of backing off, I'm going to like go for it. And that pushes me into that. I can get that extra 15 minutes in today. I'm going to do an extra meditation today. I'm going to read more about what I want.
Because I know that I am making
I'm getting
progress.
close. It's like that, I've finally panned out a few nuggets of gold, and it's not enough to actually feed me, but it's getting closer, so it's like, yeah, it's work. I'm cold, my hands are freezing, whatever, but I'm going to keep going, because I know I'm getting there. Where there's a little, there's a lot. So I'm going to keep putting it in there and keep on task, stay on point, keep your laser like focus on the end result and keep bringing that up within you, because that's going to be your guide to get to the place you want to be. So the big thing for this day, is that non-resistance, which is don't try to push it away. Don't try to
push anything.
Don't try to push anything away. Don't try to fight it. Don't make it a confrontational thing. Acknowledge it. Let it go by. And keep your focus on the direction that you're going. Use that as, an understanding that you're getting closer. You're getting closer step by step. And there's going to be other things like that. And there's going to be good things like that too. You're going to see phenomena come up that are going to be pleasant. It's not all bad stuff. There are plenty, you can say for yourself, I know that it's like, you go through those bumps and bruises, yes, but there's also things that come up that are gifts. Yes. That you go toward that, and it's before you hit your goal, but there are things that come up that are really inspiring and just out of the blue, just like the bumps. And so those are the things, those all generate that, that idea. And again, that, body, the biology, the neurology to, keep you moving in that direction. We're changing the way that we do things. We're changing our evolutionary path of how we respond. We respond as evolved consciousness, not as overreactive infants. Yes. That just like, they get touched with something and they have the startle response. It's like we don't have that knee-jerk response anymore. It's like, yes, we respond appropriately to things that are endangering us or whatever it is, but we're not interpreting every little unfamiliar thing as a danger. It's just unfamiliar. It's the unknown. If you knew it, you'd be in it. You're not choosing something that you know. You're choosing something that you don't know. And that in and of itself makes it the unknown. And that means it's going to be unfamiliar, which means it's going to be for a while uncomfortable until you get used to it.
I think it's one of those things that we don't think about very often, but that should be acknowledged. It's just the if you're trying to produce something you don't have. Right. What do you want? Why do you want it? Da 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 da. If it was known to you, it would be you'd have it already. You'd have it already.
You don't want things you already have. Yeah. So there's no reason to grasp at them. So
and because it's different, there will be an aspect of discomfort in the beginning.
Because it's unknown. We're only uncomfortable with things that we don't know. Things that are unfamiliar to us. They don't even have to be unpleasant, but they're unfamiliar, and so there's that little bit of like, right. I'm not so sure if I want to try escargot.
Right, there can be good,
but they're like fantastic.
It's so true. It's so true. You can have that anxiety for something that's great that's about to happen, and you can have anxiety for something negative. But it's very similar
very similar response,
raising of energy,
and the biological process, the neural biology, the neurochemical process is the same. There's that building up of certain chemicals that produce that fight or flight, and then when it releases, there's in a positive way, there's that dopamine response of like there's a dopamine response even if you were to fight, and at the end, if you're still in one piece, there's a dopamine rush, there's a dopamine response, if I get away from the tiger and get up the tree, there's a dopamine response. Yeah, you're still scared, but there's a dopamine rush of like, wow, that was close, but I feel pretty good because I still got all my appendages.
Right.
So,
Right.
and, so it's the same kind of thing. So again, knowing those things gives us, gives us an edge. It really does. I mean, and learning more about it will only help you evolve in that direction. And sort of things that were psychological or whatever, and sort of, amorphous and or even in the esoteric world were kind of hedged in other vernacular that didn't make sense to people who weren't, involved in that, all kinds of things. It gives it, a more evolved idea of why and how this works, and take a little bit more of the unknown off, shine some light on that, and make it more understandable for you. The more you understand it, the more powerful your practice is going to be. Guaranteed. I've seen it work over and over and over again. The more you understand, the more power each practice is going to have for you.
So there's no question. Yeah.
That's it. So resistance is futile. All right. So that's
so the exercise for today, again, observation meditation, 5-10 minutes with that focus on practicing non-resistance.
Yeah. You're just observing. Not only is there no judgment, but there's no effort in trying to stop or block any thought that's coming in, regardless of its origin or what the content of it is. You're just acknowledging it and letting it go. Write down your observations. That's it.
Awesome. Cool. Okay. Good luck, guys.
Good luck.
See you tomorrow.
Sounds good. He's tempting fate.
Do not resist. Do not resist.